Let's talk about reverberation. A few weeks ago, we talked about delay. The two of them are similar. They both give a sense of space to an audio recording. However, a delay is simply the repeating of the audio signal after some specified amount of time. In the real world, you might experience a delay as an echo, such as when you stand at the top of a valley on top of a peak, yell your name, Michael, and then some specified amount of time later, maybe a second or two, you hear back, Michael. That's because that sound has traveled across the valley to the other side to another hill, reflected or bounced off of that hill, and traveled back to you. That's a delay or an echo. A reverberation or reverb is the statistical combination of so many reflections and echoes, such that it creates a sort of tail or sense of resonance in a space. Inside of any enclosed space, such as the room I'm filming in right now, the room that you're likely watching this in, a concert hall, a gymnasium, a theater, or in a canyon, in a small box, even. All of these spaces, a sound can bounce back and forth until it loses enough energy as to be no longer audible. Essentially, a sound comes from a sound source, and there's a number of parts of this sound. There's the direct sound. That's the sound that, as a line would be drawn from the sound source to your ears. There's no reflections, there's no bouncing. The sound radiates out and directly hits your ears. That's the direct sound. Then there's first reflections or early reflections. A first reflection is if you look and put a mirror somewhere between you and the sound source, such that there would be a single bounce. So if there was a wall between the two of us right now, there'd be the direct sound, and the first reflection would be the first sound that hit the wall and then directly reflected and bounced back into your ear. In a resonant space where the surfaces allow for reflections or refractions rather than absorption, that is the reducing of energy of the sound. So if there's a space such as a gym, let's think about that, with lots of hard surfaces, the sound hits a wall and reflects, hits another wall and reflects, hits another wall and reflects, hits another wall and reflects, and continues to do this until the surfaces of the room have absorbed enough of the energy of the sound, of the original sound, such that it's no longer audible. The amount of time that this takes is the decay length or reverb tail. This is what gives a space that sense of resonance. In addition, we know that wavelengths are physical and that certain frequencies correspond to certain lengths of waves. If we're in a space that has, such as my office right now, and I look at my two walls of my office, they're about 13 feet or so apart. Now, if a frequency, and there is a frequency that is 13 feet long, sets up between the two of them, it can actually cause that frequency to be accentuated and resonate louder. And that gives one of the other timbral or sound quality characteristics that we have come to accustomed to listening to in reverberant spaces. The reason you need to think about reverberation is that it gives a sound a sense of space and place. It also serves to tie together sounds that have been captured or recorded, dislocated in time and space, together. So as an example, let's say we're in a music recording studio, and I record bass guitar, then I record drums, and the drummer listens to the bass in order to figure out how to play with them. So we're dislocated in time, even though we may be in the same space. And then later again, I'll have the guitar player play to the combination of both of those, adding in their track. And then we might have the vocalist finally lay on top the vocals on top of all three of those instruments. This is likely a fairly dead or dry space that doesn't have a lot of reverberation so that we can add our own later. So each of these tracks is rather dry and plain, and they don't sound like they were played at the same time or played in the same space. If we run all of them through some reverberation that's shared, we can start to create that sense of a shared space and tie those tracks together. So let's look at reverb in Reaper. First, there's a couple of reverbs I'd like you to download. So let me get this all pulled up here. Then we'll look at a couple of different things. Oh, I've got to fix some things. Wonderful. So the first one is by a company called Melda, and they've actually got a number of free VSTs. I'll fix this link here for you, but I'm just going to copy it for the moment so you can see what this looks like. And this should bring up their downloads page. This is a really great set of things. So you could download for your appropriate operating system. I want to go through and just show you a couple of specifics for that. I think I've actually got them. So I've already have it downloaded from earlier in the day. So we'll open up that one. And I'll open the setup app. And I'll enter my password. There's a couple of things that I want to point out. So we're going to hit next. We're going to say, I agree to the license and terms. You do not need to install Axe plugins. Those are for Pro Tools or the M Sound Factory instruments. You want the VST AU if you're on a Mac and VST3. The other thing is you're going to want to hit, it might be that all of these are white, in which case none of them are selected. These are their paid plugins, and these are their free plugins. So if you hit this M Free FX bundle, it will select all of the free plugins. You can hit next. We're going to select the destination as applications as suggest, and you'll follow the rest of the suggestions along the way until it's time to install. I'm going to exit out of that because I've already done it. So, but you can do that. And this is a really great Reverb plugin to download. The other one I'd like you to download is TAL software of the Noisemaker synth that we've heard earlier. They make a great reverb called Reverb 4. I would suggest you download this as appropriate for your operating system. And likewise, finally, there's one called Protoverb by Yuhi, which is a really great reverb. Download all three of those, install them as you normally would. I already have them installed, so we're going to come over here. And for the moment, we're going to just look at one track here. And let me double check. We should be playing audio through
5.
Great.
7.
Wonderful. All right. So I'm going to add my reverb track to the individual number jumble 1 track. A couple of things to be aware of is that the Yuhi plugin, for some reason, does not show up under reverberation or reverb. We do get the Melda as M Charm and M Convolution. We also get Reverbate. And then what was the other one I suggested you grab? Oh, the TAL also does not show up. So that is one we would have to add ourselves through TAL, and Yuhi shows up under Yuhi. I'm going to initially grab the Reverbate by Reaper, and we'll play with that one in it first. So a couple of things to be aware of. There are 2 parameters that you're probably getting used to on all of your effects plugins at this point, and those are wet and dry. And this affects how much of the processed signal is played back and how much of the dry signal is played back, or rather passed through unaffected. That's, again, wet and dry. So if we play this back, we have some basic things. We'll talk about those in a second.
1.
If it's all dry, it's just down 3 decibels, and so it's just a little bit quieter.
5.
If they're both down to negative infinity, then we have no sound passing through. And likewise,
2.
If I bring my wet up, all we hear is the processed signal. The other parameter you're going to get used to seeing a lot of is something called room size. Also, this sometimes will be referred to as length, reverb tail, or delay amount, depending on the signal processing plugin. Notice as I bring this down, we'll add in just a little bit of dry signal.
7, 2.
The perceptual effect is a smaller sized reverb chamber or room. As I bring it up,
7,
wonderful.
8.
The other thing that I think is a really important parameter to be aware of is this initial delay. Initial delay essentially is how much time elapses between the direct signal, that is, again, that signal from the sound source that comes directly to your ears, versus when you hear the first reflection, that is, the first, when the sound hits a wall and then comes to you. When we have a really small initial delay amount, it allows us perceptually to believe that we're fairly close, or we're rather fairly far away from the sound source, and that we are hearing the sound source and the reverberation kind of get to us at the exact same time. If we increase this amount,
5, 7,
this is a crazy amount of initial delay.
2,
Notice there's a clear distinction or delay between when we hear the dry sound
8,
and the reverberation.
5,
This is essentially gives us a feeling that we're closer to that sound source and that we're in a rather large space, regardless of the characteristics of the surfaces in the space, and that it's taking a while for that sound to hit the first wall or first reflection and get back to our ears.
7,
We'll
2,
dig into some more reverb concepts here in the next video.
8, 5, 7,